Thanks for joining in to this episode of The Root Brand. Stay healthy and enjoy.
Greetings. This is a follow-up to some analysis that was done last week. You can see those videos down here, and you can take a little time to review some of the other analysis done by some independent practitioners on Clean Slate. This is a comparison of 4 primary products in the zeolite space. But before we get into this, I'm going to provide some caveats. I'm the owner of Root Wellness. I'm the founder of it. I'm also the original provider of Cosiva's Clear TRS, which I removed the product from. I'm the original founder of Metron Nutraceuticals, which is the product that is produced, the company that produces the product for Zoe Global. I'm no longer involved with either of those companies. I was a founding distributor of a company called Wayorus 15, 16 years ago that was co-founded by Eddie Stone, who's the co-owner or the owner of Touchstone, which we're going to look at. So my background's a little bit diverse, but I've been around the zeolite space for roughly 16 years. I have about 40 plus years in the health and wellness, both in animal and human health. So you have a little bit of a background, but what we're going to look at is other company material, their materials, comparing products, and then we're going to look at scanning electron microscope images done by an independent research lab that I paid for. I didn't source the products. They were purchased independently and sent directly to the lab to compare directly these 4 products, because there's a lot of claims in the zeolite industry. And well, instead of everyone talking, I thought it was best that we prove up or shut up. Let's put our cards on the table and we can see what products look like under a scanning electron microscope and do some analysis based on the claims made by these companies, what the products look like and what some of their backgrounds are. So let's begin. Let's dive in here. First, we can look at the comparison of two products, Advanced TRS, which is from Cosiva, and Pure Body Extra from Touchstone Essentials. Couple things that are really important. And also, you can see this document or this form, which you can find online, was not done by me. It was not done by Root. It was done by Touchstone Essentials. And what's important with this is you'll see these MLM companies, which Touchstone Essentials, Cosiva, and Zoe Global are all multi-level marketing companies selling somewhat of the same products, zeolite products. And they do a good job of comparing other companies' products on their website. So it's really nice to have a comparison directly without having to do a lot of the work. But is there accuracy in these comparisons? So we're going to look at these. So what's important to understand here? 1, they both claim to be nano zeolites. Okay, fine. That means their fragments are small. We'll be able to look and confirm how small, how large, what range. That's a very important component. But do the claims match up to the real science? The important part with advanced TRS is this right here, that is a synthetic zeolite, and it is not a synthetic zeolite. It's important to understand that in biochemistry, you can't create a synthetic zeolite. Zeolites are created in nature, but you can create synthetic aluminosilicates. This is Cosiva's website. Right, so you can go to cosiva.com/FAQ to come to this site, and they have their explanation for what a zeolite is, right? That are microporous crystalline aluminosilicates. There are a broad range of crystals and clays. So quartz, bentonite, heulandite, morganite, clinoptilolite, asbestos are all in the class. These are all naturally created minerals and crystals and clays. They talk about that nano is 100 nanometers or less in size, which is actually correct. So for a product to be claimed as nano, it has to be less. The majority of the particles in the product need to be less than 100 nanometers. We can look at some of that. They claim that their product ranges from 10 to 250 nanometers with an average pore size of 0.9 nanometers. We'll look at that as well. But what's important and most important to understand in this is it is a laboratory-made clinoptilolite zeolite. This is a myth. You can't lab make a clinoptilolite zeolite. What you can do is make a synthetic aluminosilicate, which is what they're using. The problem with this product in using something that is lab made, which is synthetic, right? If it's made in a lab and not made in nature, it is synthetic. If it's not made in nature, it can't be a zeolite, right? Because those are natural occurring crystals. If it's lab made, it is the constituency of what it is. So in this instance, they use an aluminosilicate. The problem with synthetic aluminosilicates is they've never been approved for human consumption because these synthetic aluminosilicates can and will break apart when in an acidic environment. And you have to remember, your stomach is 2.5 in its pH, which means it's highly acidic. So you have the risk of actually fracturing this aluminosilicate structure to free and make available aluminum, which, if you're watching this, you're probably well aware that aluminum is a neurotoxin. It's a toxic heavy metal that will work systemically to create disruptions in your system. It's been linked to Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, ALS, MS, autoimmune disorders, autism, cancer, many other things, but it is a neurotoxin. You do not want this in your system. You definitely don't want to take something that runs the risk of adding more to your body when the entire premise of taking the product is to remove those toxic metals. So we're going to look at the fragments of the Cosiva Advanced TRS product, but you have to understand that what we're looking at is a synthetic aluminosilicate. It is not something in the same class. Second, we want to look at pure body. And we're going to, there's allegedly extensive university-led research, and they use a natural zeolite that's specially purified for detoxification, which basically means they're getting a powdered clinoptilolite from a mine that is ground into a fine powder that they can add to water. That's their process. And we will look at some of the other claims here. So they do a nice comparison of Pure Body Extra and Clear Drops from Zoe Global. So we have the information right in front of us. Again, this is not my material. This is on the Touchstone Essentials website. So you have the comparison between the two, and we're going to come back to this number. So I want you to make note of this. You can see that Pure Body Extra claims to have whole nano zeolite with an average of less than 2 nanometers. I want you to make note of this because it's rather important, because momentarily we're going to look at scanning electron microscope images of these fragments to determine what the sizes are. When we look at the Clear Drops from Zoe Global, there's many claims that are made And Clear Drops from Zoe Global is made by Metron Nutraceuticals, which is actually a company that I founded initially in the state of Washington and co-founded in the state of Ohio. And you can see that there's many lawsuits involving Metron Nutraceuticals. But what's important is many claims made about the process. And so as to properly explain where the process came from, I would like to use an explanation from the CEO of the company that this process came from. So we're going to review an affidavit from the party that knows best, which was the CEO of the manufacturing company that created this. So this is from state of Ohio, Cuyahoga County, from Kent Adams, who is, as he states, was the former chief executive officer of Life Health Science. And what this is important to understand is that Life Health Science and Harv Kaufman was the original provider of the liquid zeolite space. It was the company that produced the product that Wayora started with Rick Deitch, Stan Charlstein, and Eddie Stone. I was one of the first distributors for that company. But Rick Deitch, Eddie Stone, and Stan Charlstein, after about 18 months of having that product in the market with amazing success, they wanted to improve their margins. So they tried to do the formula on their own and didn't pay the manufacturer, which caused the product to not work as well, which really led to this entire process. Over a couple years, it led to Eddie Stone leaving Wayora and starting Touchstone, which we're reviewing right now. But when they made that change, I noticed it rather quickly because of my personal experience and my parents having a veterinary practice and identifying that the product had changed. So you have to understand where these products came from and who is actually behind them. So Kent Adams was the former CEO of Life Health Science, which was the original manufacturer. Nicholas Sirikos Karapanos was an employee of Life Health Science. As an employee of Life Health Science, it states in here that he was working to reformulate the Z Natural formula, which is the original product. He was hired to run the lab and the production operation and to work on these products to optimize their formula, their production and testing, and to determine the best methods of manufacturing. He initially worked as a third party and was working and employed by Life Health Science. But in his employment, he refused to sign his mutual non-disclosure agreement and actually refused to sign his employment agreement, as it turns out, so he could abscond with the process on his own. So what happened is Life Health Science provided the patent applications for these processes to Nicholas Sirikos Karapanos, to which Karapanos then took the patent applications and actually came to me saying that it was his process. I created Metron Nutraceuticals, and then he filed the patents for the process he claimed to be his own, but was actually not. It came from Life Health Science. So it's important to understand that history. In addition, what you can see here was the byproduct of some of the decision making from Wayora and their product Natural Cellular Defense, because it was found that over a 6-year period, the product was sold that didn't list the amount of zeolite and clinoptilolite in the product because they had changed it. And you can see one of the co-founders named was Eddie Stone, because he was one of the co-founders of the company. So it's an interesting history that mixes between all of these three. And what's even more intriguing, initially when Eddie Stone started Touchstone, the product that he was selling is this synthetic aluminosilicate now sold by Cosiva. But after years of selling a synthetic product, Eddie realized that the person that was claiming to be the doctor in this scenario, or the research scientist, was not who he claimed to be. So they got rid of the synthetic product and started selling a zeolite powder and water, which is what they're selling now, which we'll look at. And Cosiva picked up the synthetic product because the company didn't have a product that they could sell, and began selling the synthetic aluminosilicate. Are you staying with me on this? So we have the three. Now let's look at some analysis. Let's compare notes. And if you want more information on the science of clean slate, the scientists behind it, the process, the quality of clinoptilolite that's used in creating it, you can see that below. I'll make sure it's linked there. It is a great resource for you. But let's look at some labs. So hopefully this shows up full screen for us. So this is from Cerium Labs in Texas. This is an independent third-party research laboratory that companies can send samples to or send products to for analysis. And if you're watching this and you own another company and you want to have analysis done, I strongly recommend Cerium Labs. They've been great to work with. Their data is amazing. And if you're Eddie Stone or Nicholas Karapanos or Rob Goldbranson or anybody involved with Cosiva, with Pure Body or Touchstone Essentials or Zoe Global or Metron Nutraceuticals, I strongly encourage you to use them. Send your samples into them and let them analyze them, because the samples of the products that were being analyzed were purchased independently and sent directly to the lab. I was not involved in this process. Even the bottle of clean slate didn't come from me. So let's compare. We have the analysis. What we had is a scanning electron microscope imaging at various magnifications to determine the zeolite density, morphology, and the sizes for 4 different zeolite brands. You can see that they used a Hitachi 4800 scanning electron microscope. So here's the important part. Each one of these samples was done in the same manner. They were tested with the same procedures. The same quantity of the product was used in the creation of this analysis. So the first sample we're going to look at is Cosiva's TRS product. The second will be PBX. The third, Zoe Global's Clear Drops, and the fourth, Clean Slate. Now with this, before we get into this, if you're into the marketing of zeolite products, there's a couple things that you might hear as terminology. And you got this from Touchstone on their documentation for their product. And what you'll hear from people involved with Cosiva and Touchstone is that the smaller fragment sizes are best because they have a larger surface area, right? And there's more surface area. I am one that argues that's not the ideal, that you actually want the most broad fragment range possible. So you don't want just small fragment sizes, that you want small, medium, and as large as possible. because this amazing crystal has the ability to work in different manners throughout your system. So if you have very large crystalline fragments, they might stay in your gut. If you have medium and smaller and really small ones, they can work through your gut into your circulatory system and then do their amazing process throughout your circulatory system, wherever your blood goes. Where does your blood go? Your blood goes almost everywhere. We'll touch on a couple things in Clean Slate that makes it different, but you can also watch those videos below here as they've been added. So keep in mind two things that we know so far. Everyone else in the zeolite promotion industry says that the smallest fragments are the best. Make note of that, because we're going to find out who has the smallest fragments. Remember also that PBX claimed to have an average of less than 2 nanometers for their products, right? That will be the second product that we review. What do we know about the first product? The first product we know is synthetic. So that's out, no matter what the details look like, but we're going to analyze them anyway. Because I don't think we eat synthetic vegetables, although we might now because of what's going on. You never know. But when it comes to your health, you don't typically want synthetic products. People don't like pharmaceuticals in most instances because they're synthetic. Why would you want your supplements or products that are designed to do well for you also be synthetic when nature is so much better? Food for thought. So let's dive in. These sessions were done. Imagery was taken to analyze the products in multiple capacities at different zooms and different magnifications. This will give you an idea, and let's dive in. So first, we can see the low magnification. Low magnification is basically a more broad view, right? So you can get a bigger picture. One of the things that you can look at in these images is the amount of fragments on the screen. And you can see that there's a fairly good consistency of fragment sizes. So when we zoom in a little more, and you can see that the 500 nanometer analysis is on the bottom to give you a size range and the high magnification zoom. So you can see fragment sizes from 6.37 nanometers on the left to 36 to 20 to 15 to 24, 21, 11, up to 50 nanometers in range. So that's within the range that was discussed. And they have a pretty good range. I don't know if that's actually 6. It could be 16 or 26. So looking at the high magnification, actually is most likely 16 because you don't see anything else close to that. You can see 14, 77, 20, 46, 16, 13, 48 for fragments. You can see different components within that. The second scan shows some of the same imagery. You have 5.8 as the low, 18, 12, 7, 27, 38, 54. There's different fragment sizes. Remember, this is a synthetic. Second, we come to PBX. So this is the Touchstone Essentials product that is claimed to be 2 nanometers in size on average, right? That's not me making the claim. We were looking at their material initially. You can rewind if you need to go back to this. Let's see what the sizes say. So there's 21, 36, 58, 56, 27, 25, 34, and 17. Those seem larger than 2. And you can see most of the fragments in the comparisons are not very small compared to the other sizes. And you can see 15, 21, 78, 66, 17, 27, 29, 28. That they're consistently larger than 2. So what that means is, well, they're not telling the truth, and they haven't done the analysis on their own products to actually understand what the true fragment size. So what I would recommend is, if you're a Touchstone distributor or a Touchstone customer, you might want to send a bottle of your product, or have the company send a bottle of their product directly from their facility to Cerium Labs to have it analyzed, because truth in advertising is kind of important. And you can see here that obviously they're not being truthful, because again, in the second analysis, fragment size low was 11.6, 12, 21, 58, 40, 64, and 80. I don't think those follow 2 that are claimed. Third is the Zoe Global product. And this is a process that's used with some acid in a pot to mix this up, the original Life Health Science process. So we look at the high magnification, you have fragments of 10 nanometers, 10 nanometers, 11, 14, 19, 27, 14, 27. So a smaller range on average than the other 2. You can see that there are ranges in 6 and 7 and 10 and 19, 18, 25, and some larger ones. The second scan showed a similar class with some larger fragments. You can see they look like glass almost. So anywhere from 27, 15 to 115, 137, and 539. And then we get to clean slate. And if we go back, one of the things that's intriguing to look at when we look at the first picture is, look at the concentrations. When you look on the top left, the imagery of concentration for each product. It's intriguing what they look like in their imagery. And then we get to clean slate. So the low magnification, you can see that there's a broad range of fragment sizes, because you can look at these 2 images and you can see very small fragments, but also very large ones. And as is touched on in the videos below, clean slate is also polarized. So it has a proprietary process to enhance the natural negative charge of this crystal. And you can see this by looking at the larger fragments in both images here, where on the top left, you can see the larger fragments, their polarity actually pushes the rest of the fragments away from them, because they're larger and because they're polarized, their negative charge is stronger than the negative charge fragments around them. So they create their own spacing, which you don't see in any of the other products. But when we look at the analysis, we see fragment ranges between 9 and 10 and 11 and 32, 43, 58, and 88. And then we see 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 13, 15. And then ranges from 12, as we zoom out a little bit, to 57 to 63 to 71 to 67. So that gives you your comparison. I won't say indisputable evidence, because, well, everything is disputable. But if you disagree with the science, feel free to do the analysis on your own. So what did we find? A couple things. One, the Cosiva TRS product is synthetic. You never would want to take a synthetic product. The Touchstone product claims to be 2 nanometers in size. It's not. The Zoe Global product, while claims to be unique and patented, we know that the patent applications and the process were actually absconded with from another manufacturing facility where the creator was employed. And the fragment size is okay. It's good because, well, it's the original process done by Harv Kaufman and Life Health Science, which made a good product. And then you have Clean Slate, which is a different animal all alone because of the process. And you can see this in the other materials below, that it is not a zeolite product by label. The clinoptilolite is used to create fragments that become bioavailable silica because that's what it's made from. So this should give you a good basis of conversation with anybody that wants to do analysis on zeolite products. And we'd love your feedback. Take the time, watch the videos below. That way you have a solid understanding of what Clean Slate is doing comparatively to the rest of the industry and what the outcomes show. And did I mention that Clean Slate's the only one that is banned substance free as certified by the Banned Substances Control Group, and is the only one with an NPN number from Canada. And that's important because, well, if you're going to ship to Canada, you have to be approved. And the Canadian government is one that is picky when it comes to verifying products. And what's important is zeolite products are actually considered drugs in Europe, and they can't be approved in Canada because clinoptilolite is seen as a drug because of the clinical data that's been done on it. It is very, very valuable, very effective for its ability to remove heavy metals, bind toxins, upregulate tumor suppressor genes, bind graphene and viral particles. I think I mentioned that, as well as other environmental pollutants, glyphosate, other chemicals. As you can see, the NPN number for Clean Slate is here, 80108-681. The product, it's approved. I hope this finds you well. If there's questions, comments, remarks, please leave them below. Cheers.
Thank you for watching this episode of The Root Brand. To buy these life-changing products, click on the link below. Remember to like, subscribe, and share to help get the word out.